Okay, so before I get started, I have to say two things. First, I get super click happy with this, so I'm going to try to stay on track with it. Second, every time I get to wear one of these headphones, part of me is like, I'm this much closer to performing a song with the Backstreet Boys one day. Like every time I put it on, I'm like, all right, I'm getting there. And now I'm going to go into a serious talk. But, anyways, so I want to start this by telling you guys a story. I was 18 years old and I had just graduated from high school, and I had absolutely no idea what I wanted to do with my future. I don't know if anybody's ever been there, but it's an interesting place. So, most of my friends had plans like, oh, we're going to school here, we're going to do this, we're going to get 2 master's degrees. Honest to goodness, I have friends that did that. And I'm like, well, I have 2 plans, and I'm going to watch Netflix all summer, and I'm going to sit on my couch. And then I'm going to go, well, 3 things. Then I'm going to go to community college because I don't know what I'm going to do. So that was my plan. And that's what I did for a little while. And one day specifically, I was sitting on my couch watching Netflix, being very productive. And I'm sitting there and I'm watching my show and just being normal 18-year-old, so I think. And a thought comes into my mind, and it was insane. And I say I don't know where it came from, but I do. And it was, if I were to die right now, what would anybody say that I had done? And I was like, well, this Netflix marathon is not what I want them to talk about for sure. And you can see I did play volleyball in high school. You can tell college probably, they weren't banging down my door to come play for that. But, I was pretty decent in the Christian school circuit and setter. But, anyways, these were not the things that I wanted somebody to essentially say at my funeral. And I'm like, okay, all right. Well, I've got some work to do. I don't know what people would say about me, honestly. I've grown up in church and I've gone through the motions and I've done mission work in the States, and I've volunteered and I've done this or that. But, I, ju- I was just doing it because everybody else was doing it. And my heart was there, but it wasn't like my passion. My passion was being social with my friends and playing sports. So I had this thought, and just a sidebar of that, if anybody, oh, actually, I know because you guys are all sitting in this room that you've had that feeling of like, what am I doing here? And like, what are people going to say about me one day? And if you, having that feeling is one of the greatest gifts. It's one of the scariest things you'll ever go through trying to find that purpose. But the more I meet people and the more, places that I've been, I'm like, everybody doesn't have that feeling. So to have that is such a gift. And, I just always want to take the time to be thankful that that God gave me that. And then once again, for all of you in this room, I know that you've been in that same position. So fast forward a little bit, obviously still watching TV because I go to see a movie with my friends. And the movie was, you may or may not have heard of it. It was called The Blind Side, and they should start paying me because I tell this every time I speak. Um, anyways, so I go to see the movie The Blind Side. I'm with a group of friends, and I don't cry in movies unless an animal dies. That's probably weird and terrible, but it's how I've been my whole life. Fox and the Hound, done. People, it okay. I have no idea why it's that way, but anyways. Not sure. But so I go see The Blind Side, and there's a scene in the movie. And if you've seen the movie, you probably know what I'm about to say. But there's a very well to do family, the Tui family, and they adopt a young man by the name of Michael Orr, and they take him into their home just like he's a biological child, and they prepare a bedroom for him. And they take him into the room, and they're like, well, here's your bedroom. There's more words to that, but they show him his room, and he's like, I've never had one of these before. And they said, a bedroom? And he says, no, a bed. Sobbing. I'm sobbing. I'm like, oh my gosh, like, what the heck? First of all, what's wrong with me? I don't cry. Second, there's no way that there's kids that don't have beds. Like, that's a basic necessity. So I like suck it up because my friends can't see me crying over this. I'm like, well, this is weird. So I suck it up. I leave the movie, continue probably sitting on the couch for a little while longer. And I'm like, now Netflix is not as fun because I'm thinking there's probably kids down the street from me that don't have beds. Um, which I'm making light of it, but I came to find out that that was very true. And how I learned this was the fact that I'd grown up around this one specific social worker that has changed my life. Her name is Martha, and I love her so much. And without her, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing. But I started asking her, is this a problem that people do face? Like, is there kids that don't have beds and going through the whole thing? And come to find out, that's one of the biggest problems that social workers face is being able to find beds for the kids that they serve. So, of course, you can't unknow things like that. So now I'm like, no plans for the future. If I die, what are people going to say about me? Kids don't have beds. And I'm like, cool. Like, I still don't know what to do with all of this. So I'm driving down the road. I get to my parents' house. I walk in the kitchen and I say, guys, they're literally like standing at the counter cooking dinner. I'll never forget it. And I'm like, hey, I'm home. So I think I want to start a nonprofit. And they were like, okay, okay, yeah, oh, cool. We don't know how to do that, but we can probably figure it out. Google it, whoever, talking about Googling things. Yeah. So, anyways, I have a big mouth. You probably couldn't have imagined that. And I just started talking about it with people that I thought could help me. And I began a nonprofit, and it's Beds for Kids. So, I'll just show you a couple of pictures of a recent bed delivery. I love these pictures. They're so sweet. And these are some amazing volunteers playing a little sheet toss or something there. But anyways, so since we began, we have been able to provide over 500 beds. We are currently working on a project right now to where we will provide 200 more beds by September of this year. And all of those beds will actually be in Atlanta, which is super cool. Um, and the kids that we provide beds to, just to like give you a visual of this, they're not like sleeping on like old ratty beds most of the time. Sometimes they're sleeping on the floor. Sometimes they're sleeping on an air mattress. And if they have an air mattress, they think like this is it. Like this is the greatest thing they could possibly have. But a lot of times they're sleeping on the floor with maybe a blanket. And that's very typical to see. So these are the areas that we are currently serving in. I'm from East Tennessee, and the accent may or may not have given it away. So we still operate there in Atlanta, parts of Alabama, and we just recently ventured into some different parts in Florida. So we are growing, and it's amazing. But this need is huge, and it's not just in the South; it's all over the country and the world, for that matter. So, a lot of people ask us, and by a lot of people, like every person, how do you find the kids? And that's a great question. So, what we did, like found that works best for us is we like to consider ourselves as a resource to bigger organizations that are already serving these families, but not in the way of furniture, whether they're providing after school care or food or whatever the case may be. We kind of have them, they already have the relationships with the families. They find out, hey, this kid doesn't have a bed. They send a referral to us. So not only do we get to give beds to these kids, but we get to work with some amazing organizations. One of them, Love Beyond Walls, who you will hear from next, is a new partner of ours. Wilderness Works. He's an alumni of a Move Talk from last year, and we work with him and his people. And City of Refuge is our newest one, and these are all Atlanta based. Another picture just because it's so cute. So, as if this wasn't already enough information, 3 years ago, I had another weird encounter with myself, apparently with my own brain. And because I'm like, okay, well, let's freak out about something else. We got this under control. So, if you talk to any person that either works for a nonprofit or has founded one, and you ask them like, what's your biggest struggle right now? Does anybody have any guess of what they're going to say? Money. Yes, we always need money. We're always asking for money. It's money, money, money. So I was tired of asking for money and not getting it. I was right. But believe it or not, people told me no. I was like, what? So what do you mean? Anyway, so I started writing grants, which if you've ever written a grant, my lord, it's like really hard and it's really competitive. No matter how great you think your organization is, there's about 500 more that feel the same way. So, anyways, I was like, I'm not doing this anymore. Like, there has to be a better way. So, this was like a really interesting time when give back brands were becoming bigger and bigger. And I was like a huge follower of Tom's Shoes, and I still am. And so, he has a book. And if you haven't read it, it's a very easy read and it's great. It's called Start Something That Matters. And it's basically just a book of stories of ordinary people who started these amazing brands that were funding good projects, give backs. And so I'm reading it and it's like all these just like normal stories. And I'm like, I can start a brand. Like, this is easy. So I'm sitting there and like I shoot from the hip, like literally. And so I read this book. I close the book. I'm like, all right, I'm starting a company. What's it going to be? It's got to make sense. It can't be shoes because that'd be weird. And he's already doing that. Don't want to step on his toes. So, anyways, so I was like, okay, what can I do? So I have a couple of mentors in my life that are way smarter than I am and have like started several businesses. And I was like, I'm always like calling them or showing up at their house, like, hey, I have another idea. You want to talk about it? Sometimes they say yes. So this time they said yes. And I was like, okay, and one of them had already been pushing me, like, you need to start a brand, like, you could do this. I think there's a lot of synergy there. That's his favorite word, synergy. And I'm like, yeah, okay. So, anyways, I start talking to them. I'm like, okay, I read this book. I want to start a give back brand because I don't want to have to beg for money anymore. And I feel like I can do something. So we kind of brainstormed and we came up with a concept um, that it would be pillows and they would just be decorative throw pillows. And, you know, we would sell them and see if it worked, like whatever. Okay, well, there's a lot of stuff in between that, like making the pillow, figuring out how to start a for-profit company, all of that. So I was like, I can make the pillow. I can do this. And they're like, oh, okay. So I sat up all night on YouTube with like the ugliest fabric. I have no idea why I bought the fabric that I bought, but I'm sitting there on YouTube all night, like learning how to sew. Like, oh yeah, I got this. Like, put like two little fluffs in it. It was like the weirdest pillow I've ever seen in my life. But I was like looking at it and just thought, I see the vision. Like, I just needed something to see. So I kept working at that and I kept sewing in my apartment, recruiting friends. I had friends that knew how to sew. I didn't know that, but they did. And so I recruited them. I'm like, I can't pay you anything, but I'll order pizza. We're all in college at the time. I'm like, I'll feed you if you'll like sew these pillows for me. And that worked for a while. And so we kept making them, and then we finally got something that looked halfway decent. And I was like, I want to post this on Instagram because I'm a millennial and that's what we do when we're ready to tell the world about something. Like, it's going to the world, it's going to Instagram. So I put it on Instagram and we started getting some followers. My friends and family were ordering the pillows. And then it just kept kind of growing through social media to a point where I had a job at the time too, and I was having to call in for work and make up. I lied. I feel bad now. Now they know, like they know the truth now. But I was like, I'm sick again. But really, I was sewing pillows because we were we were getting so many orders, and I was like, okay. So I kept making the pillows until literally I couldn't do it anymore. And I ended up getting a manufacturing partnership in Alabama with the Institute for the Deaf and the Blind, which I didn't intend for it to do that much good, but it also, has been helping to employ them, which has been incredible. And we actually have outgrown that facility, and now we're moving into a place in Charlotte where we can expand our line into bedding and other things and be able to support some bigger retailers that we've been talking to. So that's the story of Throw and Beds for Kids. And now I'll get to the opportunities that I need your help on desperately. So the first thing is going to be, how do we continue to scale Beds for Kids into other cities? As I talked about previously, we are slowly doing that. Is it the most organized and effective way and legal? I don't know. But we are we are giving beds to kids in those areas and we're googling it as we go, and like I said, hip shooter, so I probably need to figure that out. The next thing would be, so I just gave you guys like huge mouthful. I have two companies. You really don't know what I do anymore at this point, usually by this part of the story. So I need a way that I can tell the story of Throw and Beds for Kids in a way that they really go together, that isn't going to take me 10 minutes, or I don't really know how long I've been up here at this point. But, anyways, I need to be able to marry those stories together in a better and more effective way. And then from there, once I have like hopefully a beautiful package of what I do that makes a little more sense, I need to know how to leverage that to gain new donors and partnerships. So those are our biggest opportunities. And then I'll finish with just a quick story. There's been a lot of families that we've been able to help, but one in particular, there was a little boy in the family, and his name was Ethan. And it had gotten back to me a few Christmases ago that he wasn't going to be able to get anything for Christmas that year. His family was going through a really hard time. But the only thing that he actually asked for was a bed, and he was 8 years old. So I mean, wouldn't have cared if I had to like steal a bed. Like he was getting a bed for Christmas, and so we like got everything together that day. Sidebar: when you're about to do something good, and I believe like that this is what the Lord has called me to do. And on that particular day, I knew that that's where we were supposed to be. We wrecked a moving truck into an underpass on the way to take this bed. I mean, it was like one thing after another that day, and I'm like, I'm not gonna make it. Like, not to the bed, but like in life. I was like, this is not only am I not making it to the bed delivery, but like I don't think I'm making it. So anyways, we got to the little boy's house, and he was standing at the door, and you could tell he was like so excited. And so his mom comes out, and she's like, okay, he doesn't know what he's getting. He just knows that a surprise is coming, and he's literally been waiting by the door like all day. And so, of course, I'm like looking at the truck I rented that doesn't have a top on it anymore. And that is not a joke. And I'm looking at that, and I'm like, it's okay. I'm going to take this back to Home Depot, and I don't know what's going to happen, but he's getting his bed. So we walk in, and he literally starts crying and laughing and smiling. He's hugging all of our volunteers and, like, I mean, jumping up and down like the craziest thing I'd ever seen, because we were bringing him a bed. And I could hear him telling his mom, I knew I was going to get a bed for Christmas. This is all that I asked for. Like, he was so excited. And I couldn't help but like, I'm like, once again, like fighting back the tears, because at 8 years old, a bed was 100% like not even on my radar, because I had a bed, everybody had a bed, or so I thought. But to see this little 8-year-old boy so excited about that, that just was a huge game changer for me. And he was so thankful, and the whole family was so thankful. So, that's just a story that I hold really close to my heart when the craziness sets in, that does every day. Um, every day. But, that's just one example. And I know that there's many, many more kids like that. And so that's why Bets for Kids exists. That's why Throw exists, because we want to keep getting out there and telling kids they matter, that they can dream, and that they all deserve a bed. Thank you.